Thank you. It's such an angry photograph of me. I think my girlfriend took that just after we had a fight. So don't look at that. Look at Having fallen through a description. Next to 12 Nights in Gibraltar, your sotto voce come hitherings, and this pseudo-avuncular faux Parisian would-be provocateur, I am far less melancholy in my horn-rimmed specs, in my argyle sweater vest, but almost as chemically unglued, having fallen through description. Wires from the sun respire like baby cobras. Libra is microwavable, while Leo's chest regresses to a pockmark. Another season in the dirt, wedged between crime scenes. These streets are neither whiskered nor wizened. They are not furred, fuzzed, or snow-blurred. These streets are wind-confessing vestibules for our rusted dreamboats, regardless of our fenced-in and visibly androgynous sense of allure. Thus, the heart is sheer hearsay, as its shrubs, stones, and licorice breath make several weak assertions. For example, a bird's beak is a nib which plucks the eye, and Tolstoy must not be forced to stoop inside the bathysphere of our delusions. So while Sisyphus dreams of carting a feather away in a half-ton truck, we must seek to ream the citrus from the fruit of our investments in conserving insurgent works of art. Whoops. My blood just leapt from this rural ditch towards the theories that ruined me, where two identical lions hunt the ranks of the pilgrim's stunned retreat. So I, like Darren, don't really like trying to introduce my poems or my book. And by the way, it's such a delight to be here. That was one of the best open mics I've been to in probably forever. And reading with Darren is just a real privilege. So thank you for all coming out, and I'm just very happy to be here. So this is going to be kind of a quick and very somewhat nebulous attempt to introduce my collection. Now, I am of the belief that poems do come from experience. You can't write anything without drawing on your own experience. However, this book, none of the poems are really directly related to an event in my life or something that happened to me. However, I'll just give you a quick background about the years during which I was writing this book. It began in Arizona, and this was during the election of Barack Obama. So I was in a Republican state teaching young Republican kids, and kind of this election series was unfolding. I moved to Kelowna, I moved to Vancouver, and I moved to New York City, and that's where I finished the book. And even while I was in New York, I moved 3 or 4 times. I was in Bushwick, I was in Bed-Stuy, I was in East Williamsburg, South Williamsburg. All this is to say, many of my experiences, my jobs, my friendships were transient. And the poems began to reflect this kind of discontinuous collage of experience and ideas. And all the while, I was immersed in the rhetoric of American politics and protests. When I was in New York, that was at the beginning of the Occupy Wall Street movement, and I was down there a little bit. It wasn't, throwing bricks at cops or anything, but I took part in the protests to a small degree. So I was kind of immersed in that culture, and the news stories became at once more real because I was at the heart of a distressed empire. But of course, these stories were also much more abstract, with the hyperactive media coming at you all the time, and just being in a radically divided culture. So again, I began to notice throughout this period of time how historical ideas, events, and figures were being continually kind of resurrected, recontextualized, repurposed. For example, like narratives around the Arab Spring uprising. The Western media was always imposing these ideas of democracy and so forth. So the poems began to take on this sense of the aesthetic and the thematic thrust of the poems in the book. We're concerned with the sense of these old stories, old truths, even literary figures, ideas, persisting, yet being continually transformed. So that's where this book kind of came from. And I'll read the title poem from the collection, A Brief History of the Shortlived. He sinks into the center of his art, mischievous as a whirlpool. The year is 1864. The kingdom of heavenly peace has appeared and disappeared, the peasants having died from eating toadstools, as their children milked the blood of goats. How he glides beneath the last proscenium, martinis twirling in each hand. The year is 1977, and wistful Bucharest once again is off the map. He drops his wand and flicks his tongue into her distant sex. Not the space beside the chest, but behind the silver-gilt ciborium is where a single shaft of sunlight bursts a mote of dust from its penumbral ennui. The year is 1667. Milton is impoverished. Paradise Lost has been ransomed for resurrected sight. Who wouldn't sell his soul to look at will through every pore? Why do felons reveal the subtlest of clues in order to confess? He patrols the Vespers, the gloaming, and the Middle Ages without a cigarette, guide, or point of reference. When we see him next, we'll know how long it takes the breeze to shimmy and to shape itself anew. The hour here is 11:41 a.m. The new Prime Minister has just collapsed into our father's arms. Experimental surgeries to save his heart will soon become the final decadence in a land attuned to making love as a private form of tyranny. Before computers, time was not a river, just the caressing of the impermanence of truth, et in Arcadia ego. His spree is over, his wallet empty, but for modern forgeries of ancient counterfeits. So tired and longing to escape the storms and voguish cycles of our lives, he hides amongst the brotherhood of sleeping car porters, dozes off between the rats and saints. So, like a lot of Canadian poets, I'm addicted to writing sonnets. I'm a functional addict. I only write sonnets on the weekends, always with company, with friends. And they're really not hardcore sonnets. They're pseudo-sonnets, sonnet variations and such. This is one of an example of such. It's called The Intellect Wants to Dream. Listen, the intellect wants to dream, goes the tinny refrain of an ice cream truck, moving somewhere between unheard melodies and crass utterance. Then a catastrophe of bells, children crashing into the senseless delight of themselves. But what's sweeter is the loneliness at the heart of every coupling. What's at risk? Or so your mind insists, like a hive of ionized honeybees. Then your thought becomes a paper flower unfolded by an artless whim and crumpled up by worrying neuroses and planted in the heart of reason. Legion. In service to the people, pressing my ear against the wall, I think I hear the poor scarabs trapped in amber celluloid. This is after the uprising, but before the arrival of warships and the wolf-like helicopters come to gop, gop, gop. In this room, there are other rooms with walls made of yellow dust, lit by glowing screens. The doors are voices, all of them locked. In service to the people, lead reporters are sacking museums, and on my orders, they will escort the mummified dead back to their network executives. Only one throat can trumpet through these ancient gramophones. Only my song can pierce the galvanized hummingbird skull. In the street, there is smoke, human forms, shapes of blue twisted metal, and police. What I say makes history obsolete. Like Herodotus on stilts, I seek that white-haired raconteur, the one who swam with sharks and swallowed African hornets on a dare. Where is he now? Probably weeping in some Sunset Strip hotel, his pinpoint Oxford shirt spangled with the blood of the silence. In my absence, silence is my legion in service to the people. Okay, I'm going to change gears a little bit, and this is now the performance segment of my reading. I've tried this a few times, and I did a performance at the Vancouver Poetry Fest, and I had like a thumb piano, and last time I had a tambourine. It's kind of silly. This time I'm going to get, in a way, even sillier. I'm going to snap my fingers between section breaks. But I think we've been to readings where poets indicate a section break by holding up one finger or dramatically pausing. And I usually get a little frustrated with that. I want to, fill that silence with something fun. It's a strange series. These are prose fragments, and I've put them in chapters, and each chapter is divided into sections, and the sections will sound like this. Okay? Can you dig it? All right. This series is called Imago, and this is chapter 1. Dear wasted youth, there are holes inside the sky, crows of missing time. In the wrong city, in the wrong hands, a gun holds its breath, wanting to believe in the corporeal nature of some imminent threat. From my last affair, for you the undressed, I shall fashion the autumnal cloak of allure all mothers fear their sons slipping into. Chapter 2. While waiting for someone to invent the machine that will challenge your lack of initiative, consider if you care to stay a while why technology exists. Caught and twisted in a cypress branch, the plastic grocery bag of the heart asks, where did my aura go? Who locked the door outside the consumerist universe? It was likely the underground chemist I know, who is also a novelist and close in appearance to a guy I once danced with, a Marxist drifter who was a lousy dresser but as happy as a full-time drunk could get. Mine, the only childhood so buoyantly shrugging off each reprimand with its hollow shoulder, its crayon-scrawled grin. Chapter 3. Please, remove this shrapnel from my chest, you French philosophers who keep misconstruing my shoelaces as tripwires. Carefree is a suburb of Phoenix, according to the textbook salesman whose daughter will train to become a dental hygienist, even though we all believe in her ability to churn out middling works of art. Beneath the stairs, a fledgling philanthropist is about to write, where does origination come from? But curls up into a ball instead. Chapter 5. This first one's for Ottawa. The lime pit's already dug for our next political letdown. Notice the arbor's vine-riddled lattice work where lozenges of sun kiss the graves of your eyes. In the hotel lobby of the dispossessed, to see the fountain as a chandelier, try standing on your head. This room has all the charm of a wasp's nest on fire, tourist that I am, perpetually passing through. Last night, I vomited in the ashtray. I saran wrapped the moon. One more chapter. This is chapter V111. 8. As she jumped the turnstile, she winked. New York was like that, according to the umpire, bent over his letterpress like a dyslexic prince. That morning we tidied up and hijacked Innocence for more sleep. Only the pilot light kept its lonely vigil. How our lookalikes, having traded extravagant gifts, loosened the turnbuckle of their scruples. I was orphaned by an untied shoelace. You were found throwing vinegar into the eyes of lions. So, what was I going to read next? 2 more poems and then I'm done. A longer one and a short one. Above a gaming hall. Back then, you rarely slept. In the gaming hall below, Dostoevsky crashed and pounded with a passion worthy of Beethoven's Fifth. Forget warmth. You crouched inside blizzards, which seemed to draw force from your poverty and self-estrangement. Nights held diversions, velleities, but no dreams. Talks with ravens, imagined escapes from hospital gardens or visits to the graveyards for the criminally insane would have to wait as you rolled on bed springs thrusting up at angles wild as the surface of crosswind sea. Spent, you'd lose yourself inside the stained glass panes above your writing desk, the haloed gaslights soft-focused to a candied mist. Was it a game or pathetic romanticism, trying to envision the suffering of your life as glass, sifting the separate colors from the light? Recall the cold, how you'd tremble against the mornings which seemed to hold fewer prospects for celebrity than chances for a rendezvous with the landlord's hair-lipped maid. Afterwards, you'd bathe in mildew and rotted gypsum, or merge with shades of frankincense wafting in from the Church of the Annunciation, giving a kiss of sweetness to the early hours. Often, you'd weep, loathing the frozen drafts, your own self-loathing, obliged to seek refuge within the favors of a jealous autocracy. From nothingness, the shadows of words appeared, like the wings of a bird lying frozen in banked snow. For years you lingered, you survived the exhausted age by refusing to rage or completely shatter. Must I remind you, I am the voice you always knew but could never heed, while in the rooms below, Dostoevsky's fits continued, his appetites increased, and by now his name has become legend beyond St. Petersburg. I'll close with this poem. Thank you again for your attention, and let's all go out and drink afterwards. Right? View from a flag. I'm on the roof, looking down. Although the night is old, I've never been more awake to visions and sounds. A furnace kicks against the wall. Beneath the floor, children whisper. They are growing ponderously fat with sleep. A thread of milky light will split their mother's abdomen. A spark will wink as the moving moment fans the rebel cackle of the flames. I do no more than just repeat. I remind myself that images are images of images whose fountain source is dry as history's old ink. Soon this night will open, newly chaste. I'll unfold and watch the children scatter from the blaze, through bars of angry light and across the cold, obscurely starlit fields. Thanks so much.